We say me line up.
We want a platform to move forward as practitioners and as a community who share the idea that the world could be at least a little better, and we're in a position to do our part.
8 or 10 years ago, I was talking to some of the sort of PV pioneers, if you like, the people that I looked up to anyway, the generation that came before me, wanting to gather together to learn from each other. We weren't able to do that at the time. We couldn't get the funding. It was an expensive game really to fly everyone around to one place. But now we're benefiting from today's technologies to be able to do something like this on a much bigger, grander scale than we could have possibly have dreamt of.
There's no particular church of PV. There's no society or network. There's no global group that decides what PV is, and it's us. The people here, it's us, the people, the activists, the scholars, the artists, the social workers in the wider sense, entrepreneurs, the citizens, who have responsibility for this heritage and for taking it forward. The good news is it's been a success, and it is a success at the moment. The last decade has seen a flowering of participatory video. There's more projects, there's more money, and there's many more contexts where it's being used. It reminds me very much of the 1990s and developments in what was called PRA, Participatory Research and Action, which is a very widespread development methodology, a participatory methodology. And in the 90s, there's lots of talk about scaling up, or perhaps scaling out, or perhaps even scaling in. And as more people became involved, as the stakes were raised, there was a great danger that the method, the procedures, became the point of doing it, and that it became divorced from the values that gave them life. And there's a good chance we're at that point now with PV, at least that's something that many of us are concerned about. So what needs to be done? Well, in my view, we need to make the most of the opportunity we have. This growth, this flourishing, is an opportunity to do good in the world. It's an opening of a space for change. We need to work out collectively how we protect our values, how we protect what's been done so far in life, going on into the future. And in my own view, that doesn't mean we create dogma. We shouldn't create a set of regulations about what PV is, because that's, in a sense, against that spirit that we were just talking about. We need to raise our game between us and work out, going forward, how it is that we can collectively protect those values, and in doing so, not let go of how we got here.
Whilst we started with the idea that it's not just up to us as practitioners or all the other people who are here today to define what participatory video is, we need to hear from those people who take part in participatory video projects about what matters to them in what they take part in. At the same time, we were concerned about the divide between our intent in what we do and our ideals, and how that has somehow got lost. We need to learn from what actually happens, because we tend to talk about the ideals and how wonderful everything is, and what gets rather overlooked is the very real difficulties in translating our ideals into practice.
It's a particular pleasure to introduce our first presenters today. We have Narsama and Lakshmama, who are two women working with the Deccan Development Society Community Media Trust, where they've been working with participatory video since 1998. So I'm going to welcome Lakshmama and Narsama, who are actually busy videoing me at this very moment.
Hello everyone there, I'm Narsama, Chinna Narsama from Deccan Development Society in Prastapur. We're all unlettered people, and since the mainstream media doesn't represent us, we decided to form our own community media.
You mentioned a lot of trainings that you've been doing with different groups around the world. I'm wondering if you could tell us how those trainings have been set up, how they came about, and how you're choosing which groups to pass on your knowledge to.
Several organizations visit Deccan Development Society because they are into biodiversity and other issues, and when these international groups visit them, They watch their videos either at Deccan Development Society or at the various film festivals where their videos have been screened. These people approach Deccan Development Society and these people and the community media group to train their people.
One question came through on the chat about how you make the decision about which stories to tell, what the focus of your videos would be.
The team meets once in a week or in a month to discuss issues on which they should be making videos. And for example, again, to just give an example, when it came to BT cotton, it was introduced in a nearby district, and when they heard that it was a very controversial seed, they decided to travel all the way to Warangal. They followed the farmers from sowing up to the harvesting. They filmed them for over a period of 6 months through the crop period. And then when they interviewed farmers there, they found that most of the farmers were facing losses. And so when this video was presented in a couple of fora, people said, no, in South Africa farmers are doing very well. So they traveled all the way to South Africa to investigate if farmers there were actually doing well. So when they went there and investigated, did investigative videos, they found that even farmers in South Africa were she actually says they were all facing a zero. South African farmers were all facing a zero because of BT cotton. And they compiled all of these videos and brought them back to India and presented it before the local agricultural minister in the state, who then pushed for a ban on BT cotton in the state.
Yeah, we think that we found that like the localization is really critical in the sense that when people are watching these videos, the first question they'll often ask is, what is the name of the person in the video and which village is he or she from, before they even think about, like, say, the economics or anything else related to a particular practice. And that's really the emphasis on sort of like really featuring like local individuals, because it's not just about the agroecological sort of context of a particular place, which obviously also varies from kilometer to kilometer. Also the social, cultural sort of like context of the people to actually be able to identify with sort of their peers as somebody that they can trust, as somebody that they can relate with and find relevant for themselves. So that's why about 80% of the videos that you would be seeing as a farmer in your particular village would have been produced somewhere in that same sort of block or district, and only about 20% might actually be shared beyond sort of like those same boundaries.
Hello everyone. So what I'm going to do is provide you a little bit of context to Project Cobra before the facilitators, the team in Guyana, come in to talk. This is an EU-funded project, involves lots of partners across both Europe and South America. So it's a very large, very complicated research project, as you can imagine, with so many partners. One of the I suppose the main aim that we have in the project is to identify and share community-owned solutions to natural resource management. And for us, community-owned solutions are practices developed and carried out by the communities themselves. And it's really that first point on the slide. Is what we're trying to do in the project is change the paradigm from this idea of experts knowing the solutions to problems that local communities might have to this idea of self-determination. And that's where what we're trying to promote is this community-owned solutions. Using visual tools, and that's why we're here, because we're talking about participatory video, but we also do participatory photography. Horizontal peer-to-peer sharing. This is a stage of the project that we've just finished, and it really has involved Lakeram and the team in Guyana going to different communities around the Guyana Shield and sharing their experiences and their community-owned solutions, a way of inspiring others, but also training others in PV as well. So doing this kind of horizontal sharing and learning. There's the aspect of participation. Some of the questions we've been asking ourselves and reflecting on is, how does the process of PV unfold? It can be very messy. It's not straightforward. What happens? What happens when? Who comes in when? And all these kinds of aspects of the actual process. So one of the things that we're trying to look at is, can video communicate practical indicators for these community-owned solutions. You know, how can video be used as a way of communicating some of these solutions, but more details of those. So as I said, those kind of indicators that tell us that these community-owned solutions are working or not, or you know how they're working. And we're also interested in how the stories told through PV. You know, what's behind those? What are some of the narratives that are being told, and what are for whom are those narratives being told? And then I suppose the last aspect in terms of PV is about bringing about change. It's one of the things that we're very much kind of dedicated to. And so thinking about capacity building, how does it affect capacity building? What skills are being developed? How are they being developed? There's aspects of empowerment and representation, something that, you know, this was one of the reasons why we wanted to use visual methods. And so we were kind of also critically analysing whether this is actually happening in any of the communities that we're working with.
We started off by doing participatory video projects where we would go as facilitators and we would work with the community and help them tell their stories and make their films. So this was we still do this in some cases, but in other ways it's quite frustrating because you go there, you make incredible connections, people really get into it and start to find their voice, and then you have to leave. And it's very frustrating for us as facilitators, and frustrating, I think, for the communities as well. So we started about 10 years ago, we developed our capacity building model. We were finding that we were training staff from NGOs, and then a few years later they'd leave or take a job elsewhere. And so the NGO had the skill, had the equipment, but no one to carry it forwards. Whereas we noticed in the community members had time often and were very keen to carry on. So really then that takes us to the next phase, which for us was actually an obvious one. And okay, we see the community really want this tool, that they're able to take it forwards. How can we build capacity in the community? And the NGO or other partners can just support something in the community. And that took us to our community hub model. And I think this is a good point to watch the video.
Les enfants, les élèves, les enfants Baka, qui questionnent leurs enseignants qui ne sont jamais là, qui viennent rarement à l'école et qui donnent des messages aux décideurs de l'éducation. Alors, quand nous sommes allés à cette réunion un comité de pilotage où il y avait les représentants des enseignants, il y avait les inspecteurs des écoles primaires, il y avait les responsables de l'éducation, nous avons projeté ces éléments-là où les parents donnent leur avis sur l'éducation, les enfants eux-mêmes critiquent les enseignants et les membres du bureau, des parents d'élèves qui donnent des perspectives pour améliorer la vie à l'école. Et lorsqu'on s'est assis avec les responsables de l'éducation, le mois qui suivait, le délégué de l'éducation a fait quelque chose en affectant les enseignants dans les écoles où les parents et les enfants Baka se plaignaient qu'ils n'avaient pas d'enseignants. Donc ça a été aussi un résultat assez important.
My name's Neville Mayer, and yeah, I'm a community worker. I got into PV 2006. It took me hook, line and sinker right from then. It's really integrated into my approach as a development worker.
My name is Samsang Namtembu. I live in South Africa, Durban. We got trained for 14 intensive days of PV training. After the training, we sat together in Vumani and said, we got some trainings, so let's see if we cannot raise some money to get ourselves some equipment, get a space for the office. Let's see how we can move on, take this PV to another level in South Africa, because we felt it was a good tool that we could use, you know, to uplift our communities.
ProPlaneta was hired by IFRC to develop this project. Initially, when they came to me, they said, well, we want you to go down to Tanzania to work with this Maasai village and just do a consultation through PV. One, if they knew that the climate was changing, if they were feeling that in the ground. Two, if they had information that they needed to adapt their livelihoods, and in case they did not have, how can they get that? So I designed this project called Connecting the Dots, which was not only working with the Maasai community, but connecting their messages or taking their messages to the different 5 stakeholders involved in this process of translating the satellite information down to the community level. So the main challenges, and I'm sure there are more, okay? These are the ones that came to my mind as I was reflecting about the process. So the first challenge was quite clear, was the length of the project, or the limited length. But then I do reflect a lot. What do we do? Do we then don't do it? For the Maasai, when you reach the ground and by the time you have to explain to them, you have to go into this process of discussion and reflection about climate change, the impacts. First, they don't know what is climate change, as you know. They know a lot of water or lack of water. They know a lot of food and lack of food.
Second question of Trish is, was there any legacy of participatory advocacy activity in the village?
And I'm seeing Simon, just the second part of his question, how can I ensure and what is my learning out of it? I think the only way I could ensure, thinking now, and I've run through this same issue other times, is including on my bar, on the terms of reference of the project, that they do need to show the video down to the community. But the problem is that they, yes, we're going to do it, you know, but then how, you know? The only way would be me going back to Tanzania on my own funds and showing it to the community, and that's completely out of not realistic.
At the end of that first year in 2009, we felt a great tension within InsightShare. We had very limited resources to follow up with the communities and provide support for action at the community level. Instead, the CWE programme was initially all about investing funds and masses of energy into creating the multimedia exhibit and hosting events at Copenhagen and then in Washington, D.C. I think a particular role we played in this multi-stakeholder programme was to try to get the community at the heart of it. We are enablers. We try not to impose an agenda, and we aim to be inclusive, to give the participants the final say. And in the end, everyone benefited from that approach. Working so intimately with communities meant we could guarantee authentic local representation at global events. With our partners, we're organising a symposium at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. This is 16-year-old Dia de Leon from Cunayala in Panama. At that symposium, she spoke with immense passion to delegates, scientists, and members of US Congress as we opened our CW exhibition at this most prestigious museum. She said, climate change is affecting the whole world, but it's most severely affecting indigenous peoples, and the white people don't seem to have noticed.
You're using participatory video as a very effective tool for advocacy.
अनि समुदायको मुद्दा जसको तस्बिर र सत्य कुराहरूलाई समुदायकै कुराहरू लगेर देखाइयो भने मात्र उनीहरूलाई महसुसीकरण गराउन सजिलो हुने भएकाले यो भिडियो युज गरेको हो.
And we used a participatory video method to document and showcase real issues as it is faced by the communities.
स्टेकहोल्डरको ध्यान आकर्षण गराउन र समस्याको बारेमा उनीहरूले नै पहल गरून् भन्नको लागि यो भिडियो युज गरिएको हो.
We used participatory video to get attention from the stakeholders and help and try to get solution from their own level.
हाम्रो वडामा आइरन चौकी स्वास्थ्य संस्था आइरन चौकी प्राप्त भइदिएको भए मृत्यु हुन्थेन, रक्त अल्पता बढ्थ्यो, रगत खेर जान्थेन, बच्चा आमा सबैलाई रगत पूर्ति हुन्थ्यो, बाँच्थ्यो.
आइरनको कुरा चाहिँ एकदम एसेन्सियल छ, किन भन्दा कुनै पनि गर्भवती महिलालाई चाहिँ आइरन दिनुपर्ने हुन्छ. त्यसकारण पनि 5000 गत वर्ष 5000 हाराहारीमा चाहिँ गर्भवती महिलाहरूले चाहिँ डेलिभरी गर्नुभयो. त्यसको अनुपातमा हामीलाई अराउन्ड 20 लाख जति हामीलाई आइरन चक्की चाहिन्छ.
And the happy news is that after we showed our participatory video related to lack of solar panel in our health post, we have been given, in our coordination, we have been able to provide solar panel to 5 health posts by now.
र छलफल कक्षाका दिदीबहिनीहरूले चाहिँ सामुदायिक वनसँग समन्वय गरेर ल्याब राख्नको लागि हामीले ल्याब अझ पनि हामीसँग नराखिएको अवस्था छ। ल्याब राख्नको लागि सामुदायिक वनसँग समन्वय गरेर 40,000 रुपैयाँ छुट्याउन सफल भएका छौँ।
Moreover, we coordinated with the forest user group for making a laboratory in our health post, and by now 40,000 rupees has been allocated for making making laboratories in our health post.
Video Volunteers is an organization based out of India, and the problem that we're addressing is marginalized communities lack any channels to voice their concerns and hopes to the world. They also don't have access to information that they need, and this creates a situation where policy decisions are made without their involvement and bad decisions get made. There are women who form small communities everywhere, small vigil groups everywhere that stop the timber mafia from going in. And she was talking about the wider sort of impact of the work that many of the correspondents are doing in Orissa, especially with regards to an issue like forced eviction, which is a massive problem in Orissa. She basically she pointed out how when there is that much evidence on the ground of a particular issue, and which is especially not focused on by other mainstream media or even too many government channels, the masses of records they've sort of created has been really helpful for the communities, and it's becoming very difficult to be able to ignore an issue like forced eviction in Orissa.
I've been asked to just share a few reflections on the series. One thing I've noticed, and I'm sure you've all noticed, is that participatory video has never been so popular as it is today. Within the sectors most of us work in, international development, research, advocacy, community arts, there are far more opportunities and more PV practitioners and organisations out there. As Chris High from Open University, as he said in a piece he wrote when we launched the series last May, without some attention to quality as well as quantity, we're in danger of losing some of the focus on solidarity, on challenging injustice, and on good participatory ethics, which led to the success of the field in the first place. So when I reflect back on the past year, on the 5 web gatherings, I feel very happy and satisfied that this series has contributed something worthwhile. Each gathering that took place offered something fresh and valuable. The virtual field trips we organised allowed us the privilege of hearing directly from groups and communities who were using participatory video as a grassroots tool for social change. How exciting it was then to hear from the brilliant young people in Web Gathering 5, to learn how their videos have impacted and benefited their rural communities and regenerated local health posts. It's rare, I think, that as practitioners we get to hear what happened next. Well, I've certainly learned a lot, and I hope you have too. I think the combined result, together with the Right Shop last month, has produced a rich legacy. You could call it a learning agenda, which is best described as a map, an invitation to think about what is involved in being a proficient practitioner and some different ways of getting there.
Here we are. So it's we've broken it down through is the knowledge, which is the understanding of a topic, the skills, what skills you might need to do, to research, to find out how to do something, and the values that the practitioners themselves might need to consider. And we presented these in forms of questions, really. We started to pull resources, and there's a lot of material out there, and we just thought it would be really good if we could start thinking about how people could access these simply and easily as possible and as clearly as possible. So we started bringing together some video resources, and they include, very straightforward how-to videos, but also obviously, case studies of projects.
I think it'd be very useful to think about the networks around participatory video. So this last year, we started on the 6th of May last year. We've had these web gatherings, and part of the value of that is just the chance to make contact with one another and to understand what one another are doing. And I think if the agenda is to try and maintain and improve our collective practice, then some more careful thinking about the forms of networks between practitioners and how we support one another and how we're accountable to each other would be very useful.
We went out. Thanks so much, everyone.